Hi, this is Jim up in Northwest Indiana. I love to listen and learn from the ladies at Scandalwater while I'm on long road trips.
Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
and Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello, Candy.
Things look a little different today, don't they?
They do. It's very, very different.
Yes, we are actually recording in my house.
I know.
This is the very first time we're doing this. You may hear the sound in the background. There is somebody who's mowing right now.
He's trying to beat the storm, man.
He is, and the storms are coming.
They are coming.
They are coming. But you know what? This is actually, I think, going to be very appropriate.
Yes, it's very Americana. It's very quaint.
Well, it is, and it also actually segues nicely into the question I'm about to ask you.
All right.
Which is going to seem like it is coming directly out of left field.
Oh, okay, let me go stand in left field and catch it.
Okay, so here's the deal. This episode is going to air, as they all do, on a Tuesday, right before Father's Day on that Sunday. So we're going to talk briefly about Father's Day. First, a little tidbit I discovered, something I did not know. It actually was first celebrated on June 19th of 1910 in the state of Washington, but it wasn't until 1972 that it became a nationwide holiday in the U.S. Did you know that?
I did not know it was that recent.
And I found a little poll that was taken in 2021. It was on this site called YouGov, and they asked over 1,000 Americans to weigh in about what they planned to do to celebrate Father's Day for that particular upcoming year. And the top 3 responses were, do you want to take a guess?
Grill out.
A special meal.
Have a grill out.
That was
yeah.
the second answer.
Go to a
Yes.
movie?
No.
Oh, I guess I don't then.
A gift.
Oh, a gift.
was
Oh,
the
sure,
top. A
sure.
gift was the top response. The special meal was second, and a card was third.
Oh, okay.
Now, the fathers in that survey were asked what they would like most. They marked as so many answers.
A grill.
But there was a top, well, actually, there was a tie for the top response. The 2 answers that got the biggest response were having a special day with their family, doing
Aw.
something special with their family,
That's
and a card.
That's sweet. So they like cards. Oh.
They do. Well, I bring all this up because as Ashley and I headed into this episode, we actually realized that this particular movie, which is in alignment with our theme of What a Disaster. This is a very, very famous disaster movie that we realized neither one of us particularly loves. But our husbands
Yes.
both adore it.
Yes, yes.
Brian loves it. Kirk loves it. And it kind of hit us.
Yeah.
We were like, that's interesting. And then as I started to research, for the episode, I was a little surprised because I just thought, like my husband, everybody loved this movie. I discovered there's actually a little bit of, not controversy, but there are mixed reviews. This is a film where you have people who either love it or criticize it.
Yeah, I wouldn't
sharply.
say hate it.
Nobody
hates it. It's just
they'll laugh about it.
Yeah, they kind of make fun of it.
Yes, they'll mock it, I think is a good way to say it. We were kind of taken aback by that. And Ashley and I thought, you know what? Let's lean into this. This is going to be a fun episode. We appreciate that our husbands and a lot of people out there absolutely love this movie. Happy Father's Day, Brian and Kirk.
Yes.
This is for you.
Yes.
But we are going to come back after the break and we're going to talk a little bit about, what is it that people love about it and what is it that people bring up that they think might be just a tiny bit over the top. We'll talk about it later. But first, let's go ahead and dig into Armageddon, 1998.
Let's do it.
So first, just a little bit of background. This was a PG-13 rated movie. It does run 2.5 hours.
That was a long one.
I know. We both did a recent rewatch. We're going to talk about that in a sec. But I was surprised at that. I did not realize that it was that long. Yes. The director was Michael Bay. Jerry Bruckheimer was one of the producers, and J.J. Abrams is one of the 5 credited writers, although there were lots of other writers who worked on this as well. But those three names,
I thought, oh
right.
my gosh, this is going to be a blow 'em up like man fest. Let's go.
And it was
And
a
it
blow 'em
was.
up. Yes, it was just action, action, action. It was crazy. At the time of its production, Armageddon had the largest budget ever approved by Disney. They were working under the Touchstone name for one of its films. $140 million.
I would believe it. Some of that stuff was pretty epic.
It absolutely was. You can see where this would cost a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. The movie summary I found in a People magazine article.
you're not going with
said-
IMDb?
I'm not. I'm
Aw.
mixing it up,
Okay,
Ashley. We're
okay.
going crazy on this one. All right. Are you ready?
We're at a new house. It's a different
What?
review. What is happening?
We've got somebody mowing outside.
Gosh.
You all just buckle your seatbelts.
That's right.
All right. So here is a quote from that article where they give us the summary. In the 1998 hit Armageddon, which Jerry Bruckheimer produced, NASA enlists a group of oil drillers to fly into space, land on a massive asteroid that's hurtling towards Earth, drill into the rock, and insert a nuclear bomb to destroy it. It does not go on to say in order to save the entire
Right,
world,
right.
but that's it. That kind of covers it, right?
That was it. That's like a regular Tuesday, right?
And wasn't it an 18-day window they
Oh
had?
yeah. It was no time at all.
so
No, they knew the asteroid was coming. Like what was it? I think they knew it was coming in 18 days. It was something really short. There was
Right.
a really, really brief time lock.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the end of mankind is coming in 18 days at the start of the movie.
Yes.
So they have less than 18 days to train these people, get them to be astronauts, send them up there, do the deed, come back down.
Save the entire planet.
Save the whole planet.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so both of us rewatched it
Yeah.
recently. Let's share a few of our impressions.
I just thought this is a popcorn movie. If you go into this and take anything seriously, you are not going to have a good time. You have to go into it with your popcorn, going, okay, let's just have fun. And
I wanna be
Bruce
entertained.
Willis was at his smirkiest.
He was.
His just little smirk the whole time. And also my impression by the end was Ben Affleck's character, AJ, was the unluckiest guy that ever lived because everything bad happened to poor AJ.
Poor AJ.
Yeah.
I mean, but spoiler, things worked out really well for him in the end.
We knew it would.
Well, right. Yes. I remember seeing this the very first time when it first came out. I did not adore it the same way my husband did. And so I had not watched it in the interim. So I remembered the basic premise. I remembered the song I loved. I thought it was a great song, by the way. I was an Aerosmith fan.
Yeah.
So I thought the song was great. And I think I remembered the video as well. I remembered the love story. I remembered the premise. That was about it.
Yeah.
So going back into this, as soon as it started, I saw, we hear Charlton Heston doing the
Was that who that
That is
was?
Charlton Heston. So that sets a tone right
Yeah, it
there.
does.
And then you have like the voiceover of talking about this cataclysmic event that happened all these years ago, and now it brings it into today. And so I'm like, okay, epic already from the start.
Yeah.
Then we have the comic character coming into this scene with the
With his
explosion.
dog.
Yes. I thought, okay, we're going to have action, explosions, but also humor.
Letting you know up at the front.
And then when we had Harry firing a gun on his own oil rig,
I know.
I thought, all right, here we go into over the
Ridiculous.
top. This
Yes.
is what I'm going to expect for the rest of this movie.
And it was a good setup.
It was.
They delivered on that premise.
Absolutely.
You know, one thing I noticed is with the billing. Liv Tyler got billing over Ben Affleck.
Which is interesting.
I know. And Brian said, well, what had he done by that point? I said, won an Oscar because he had won for best screenplay, I believe by then for
Yes,
Good Will
for Good Will
Hunting.
Hunting, yes.
Him and Matt Damon.
But he still was relatively unknown.
As far
in
as the
terms
acting
of,
world.
Right, exactly. I saw one source. I did not see this across multiple sources, but one source said that Liv's part was cut after she committed to it, that she was disappointed that she did not have as
bigger role.
premium, a role as she thought she was going to have. So
Similar
that
to
may
what
have-
happened to Julianne Moore in The Fugitive, right? Because she signed on
Right.
when it was a really big part. So she still gets higher billing because that was part of the contract. And then her role is so small.
Yeah, it was probably like that. So
Interesting.
yeah. Well, let's talk about the script. Robert Roy Poole and Jonathan Hensley are both credited with coming up with the story for Armageddon, so I'm not exactly sure how that played out. But Jonathan is also one of the credited writers for working on the screenplay, and I did find a comment that he made to E! News at one point where he talked about something that was important in creating the script. He said, quote, "If you don't develop the characters, then you're just left with a bunch of physical action that's disconnected from character. You might have a chance of having a successful movie at the box office, but it increases your odds exponentially if you include really strong character stuff."
Yeah.
And I thought that was important because this is such a big action movie, but I think that brings out the point that they were trying to focus on the characters and their relationships.
That probably is what made it longer, too, because they wanted to do all these big action sequences, but they didn't want to sacrifice the moments with the characters.
Yeah, right. Now, with so many different people working on the script, because as we've said, it was more than the 5 credited writers who did that, of course, there were many changes that occurred as the story evolved, but I thought this was really interesting. This came up in the movie trivia that accompanies the film, but it also came up in other sources as well. Reading from that movie trivia, though, quote, "The original script did not include the romantic subplot between AJ and Grace, and
Really?
instead had more emphasis on Truman. It was added after the success of Titanic with teenage girls. Most of the romantic scenes were written by Scott Rosenberg and filmed later in the production."
Really?
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Yes, they added in that big relationship piece, but I have heard a few people when we talked later about some criticism. There's been a little bit of criticism
About the
over
relationship?
Yes, and so
Interesting.
that makes me wonder if this had something to do with it, the fact that it was added later. I don't know. But let's talk about the cast. Obviously, the first person we think of is
Bruce.
Bruce, yes. He played the lead role, Harry Stamper. He was the owner of the oil rig, expert oil driller, and father to Grace. Guess who was considered for the role of Harry Stamper?
Harrison Ford.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, stop.
Yeah, but he turned it down. Yes. So a lot of people will talk about how emotional they got when they were watching the scene, the big scene. Is it okay if we do spoilers?
I think
this
so.
is 1998, right? We
Yeah.
can. Okay. So the scene where Bruce's character sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
A lot of people will get emotional during that.
I did like that scene.
I got emotional.
I really
teared
liked
up.
it.
Yeah.
I liked that he thought of Grace and her on the swing, and that's one of the things I remembered from watching this movie is that ending, and it was just lovely. You know, something else, I don't know if I have a chance to say this, but something else I really appreciated about this film is at the end when AJ thinks that he's going to be the one that has to do it, and Bruce pushes him back in, he takes that moment to say, "I love you."
Oh, that's what got me.
loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That in
was
this big
beautifully
macho
done.
movie, they allowed these two men to say, "I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm glad you're my son," or "I wish you were my son," or something. He gave him his blessing, which is all that AJ ever wanted.
Yes, and there were tears. I mean, there were tears on their part as well as ours. But in order to get to that point of being so emotional, they said that Bruce had a picture of his daughters in front of him to help him cry during his goodbye scene with Grace. I know. I thought
So that
that
makes
was
it real.
really sweet. And you know, we've talked about Bruce Willis a few times now, especially during our Die Hard episode. As everyone knows, he retired from acting in 2022, which was when his family disclosed his diagnosis of having aphasia. And then it was in February of 2023 when his family confirmed that his condition was the result of frontotemporal dementia.
Yeah.
But reflecting on how Bruce conducted himself during the filming of this movie, Jerry Bruckheimer said in an interview that, quote, "Bruce is such a good guy." He referred to him as a giving guy and a good friend. And he told a story to illustrate this. It sounded as though, they didn't just explain this in detail, but it sounded as though the Armageddon crew, for fun, would throw money in a cash pot. And then they would draw a winner every week just to kind of lighten the mood, just to be
That
uplifting.
sounds nice.
Right? But here's the thing. Jerry Bruckheimer said, talking about Bruce, he was so generous to the crew. They'd have this cash giveaway drawing, and he'd throw a lot of money in the hat, and the crew members would always take away some nice extra cash at the end of the week, whoever won.
That's nice.
Yeah, I thought so too. Now, it was Bruce's movie. Ben Affleck said in a DVD commentary, quote, "Bruce is the star. It's Bruce's movie." But then he went on to add, but more so than most of these movies, they went against type in a sense that they did try to at least have kind of a limited storyline for each of the main ensemble players.
I agree with that.
Right, which is what I think goes back to that writer, Hensley, who said
They were trying to focus on characters.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So Liv Tyler, of course, played Grace Stamper, Harry's daughter, who works for his oil company, and also
at her most vulnerable and teary-eyed, and just like you want to give her the world.
She's just beautiful.
She is.
She is. You know, she was 20 years old.
Oh, she was so
The movie
young.
opened on her 21st birthday.
Oh.
So she was a baby.
She was a baby.
Yeah. But a few different actresses considered for the role were Denise Richards and Mila Jovovich. Is that how you
she
say
was
her
in the
name?
Fifth Element.
Mm-hmm. And Robin Wright. Now, the latter two turned it down. I'm not sure if they actually offered it to Denise or not, but the other two were offered the part, turned it down. Liv herself turned it down twice before accepting.
Interesting.
I tried to find out why she would have turned it down. According to Wikipedia, in a 2001 interview with The Guardian, Liv said, "I really didn't want to do it at first, and I turned it down a couple of times. But the biggest reason I changed my mind was because I was scared of it. I wanted to try it for that very reason. I mean, I'm not really in this to do amazing things in my career. I just want it to be special when I make a movie."
Oh.
So she decided to go for it. And then, of course, we've already talked about the fact that Ben Affleck played AJ Frost. He is very skilled as an oil rig driller, but he's also a bit of a rogue. They call him a cowboy. And of course, the love interest of Liv Tyler. Ben has famously said quite a lot about this movie.
Really?
Oh, we're going to come back to that over the break.
Okay.
Yes. But in a 2022 Entertainment Weekly article, he said that he was super excited to get cast. He had some success, as we said, but he still considered himself, according to what he said in this interview, he still considered himself a broke young actor at the time he was offered this. He said he would have done a Pampers commercial if they were going to offer him $600,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I see you, Ben.
And he also said this was his first big budget movie with like a ton of stars. So this was big for him. A cute little quote. He says, "I was a little naive about the opinions people would form about me, or the way in which Michael," meaning Michael Bay, "and Jerry's focus on aesthetics, and you guys got to go to the tanning bed. They made me fix my teeth and work out and be sexy."
I thought his teeth looked very different.
Yes, they put some money into his smile. I'll end the quote. He said, "Be sexy. How do I do that?" But yes, that's Ben. We'll come back to him later. I liked Billy Bob Thornton as
I
Dan
did too.
Truman. I mean,
I liked him a lot.
Right. I mean, everybody did a really good job in their parts. I don't mean that, but I was taken with Billy Bob Thornton.
I thought he did a good job. He brought that character a lot of humanity.
I agree. Well, he admitted that he did the movie primarily for money, and he will sometimes make jokes about being in it, but he has also been quoted as saying, "Well, it's not that bad."
No, it's not that bad. It's just silly fun.
It is.
You just have to adjust, like I said, you have to adjust your expectations.
Yeah. And a fun note, this also came from the movie trivia that accompanies the film. They said that Billy Bob Thornton actually ended up helping to add to his character development when he told Michael Bay the backstory that he had created for Truman.
Oh.
He said that in his mind, he had created this whole storyline where Truman had been on track to join NASA as an astronaut, but after he had suffered this crippling nerve damage as a young man, he wasn't able to fulfill his dreams. He had to go into this capacity as an administrator. And Michael Bay loved what he shared so much that he had a scene written that would refer to that backstory by showing a metal brace on Truman's leg.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I thought so too. Steve Buscemi, of course, played the role of Rockhound. According to the movie trivia, he said that when he was pitched that role of Rockhound, he was supposed to be this heroic geologist, and he was excited because he was tired of playing all the low-life characters in his wording. So he took it thinking, this is it. I'm going to, get out of being typecast.
A genius low life.
They wrote it into the script after he took the part.
Oh,
yes.
Poor Steve. He also got the and billing, where it says and so-and-so. It was and Steve Buscemi.
Well, there we go. Michael Clark Duncan was excited to be cast in the role of Bear, but was reportedly very insecure when they first started filming, to the point that it was making his performance not very good. So after just a few days, Michael Bay and Bruce Willis had a private chat with him, and they told him that if they did not see the same character that he had shown them when he was auditioning, this loud, excited, vibrant character, that they were going to have to replace him.
Wow.
And so he came back full force and did a fantastic job. But it was a little scary for him there for a minute.
That's interesting.
Yeah. For time's sake, I'm not going to go through any more of the actors, but I'm going to mention a few more. Owen Wilson, of course, played Oscar.
I did not remember he was in this.
I didn't either. He was good, but it was a very small role, and it was apparently one of his first big budget movies too. Yeah. Will Patton played Chick. Jason Isaacs, most of us remember him, I'm guessing, I remember him mostly as Lucius Malfoy from the Harry Potter films.
Oh, okay.
But he played NASA advisor Ronald Quincy, and he reportedly was very nervous too. He said that he did his first reading in one of the scenes, and I can't remember if it was Jerry or Michael who called him over, and he's like, "Oh no, I've messed up, I'm in trouble." Right, and he asked him something like, "Do you have a theater background?" He's like, "I do. Did I do it wrong?" And he's like, "No, I love what you're doing. It's great. Keep going." Paraphrasing, but that's basically what happened, and he did do a good job.
There was another character that I kept calling Dusty. I was like, "That's Dusty," and Brian says, "Who's Dusty?" And I said, "It's a guy that was on a soap opera." When I worked in a photography studio, we only had one channel, and it had soap operas on all the time, and his name was like Dusty Donovan on, I forget what soap, if it was
One Life to Live.
Was it One Life to Live?
I don't know.
I don't know. It was either that or Guiding Light or something.
Yeah.
But I was like, Dusty, hey man! But he's one of the astronauts that goes up on the asteroid that doesn't make it home. But yeah.
Okay. Well, a few fun cameos. We've already said Charlton Heston was the narrator at the beginning of the movie. Director Michael Bay himself makes a cameo as one of the NASA scientists.
Long-haired NASA scientist. That's what I thought. I was like, that long-haired guy, that's Michael Bay.
Right after the fella who first spotted the asteroid asked to name it Dottie. If you look at the scene right after that,
it's just a flash.
Yep, really quickly they show him. And then this was timely. Back at the time the movie was coming out, there had been a woman who was famous for spending so much time living in space aboard the Mir space station. Her name was Shannon Lucid, and so they show her briefly in the background of the underwater simulation scenes.
That's very cool.
I
also like the Russian. I liked him a lot.
He did a good job.
And I like that he went back to save AJ. Mm-hmm. It's like,
yeah.
He is a hero.
Well, one last thing we'll talk about before we go to break is the setting. I thought this was fascinating. This comes directly from the movie trivia. Quote, because of the patriotic nature of the script and the success of using Top Gun starring Tom Cruise as recruitment material, the producers persuaded NASA to allow director Michael Bay and company to shoot in the normally restricted space agency. This included the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, a 65 million gallon, 40-foot deep pool used to train astronauts for weightlessness, and the use of two $10 million space suits. The crew was also allowed to shoot in the historic launch pad that went out of service after the Apollo 1 disaster, and parts of the movie were filmed at Edwards Air Force Base in California.
I thought that was cool too. I saw some of that trivia. The fact that Top Gun influenced it so much that they said, we can maybe get some stuff because Top Gun got it.
And every time you read something like that, it triggers a thought for you, because then I looked back at the movie and I said, well, it is a very patriotic movie. This is a very pro-America, wow, let's do this thing. Let's support our country kind of movie. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. They also used a real oil rig. And a part and part of that was because they got the permission when they spoke to whoever owned this, I guess. They were like, look, we're gonna portray these
in a good light.
Right. These oil drillers in a
Are
really
the heroes.
Right. So they agreed, and this means that between all of the use of this space equipment plus the real oil rig, these crew members were working around equipment that was worth approximately $19 billion.
Is that B or M?
B.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes. And he's shooting a gun. I know it's not real, but Bruce, come on.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, that was an exciting start. When we come back, we're going to talk briefly about the very famous song, and then we're going to get into this...
differing of opinions?
Yes, exactly. So we'll be back soon.
We love including listener voices in our episodes, and we're always looking for more. So tell us, where do you sip your scandal water? Do you catch up on the tea while folding your laundry, sitting at your work desk, working out at the gym? Let us know by sending in your shout out, telling us your first name, your hometown, and where you are or what you're doing when you're listening to Scandal Water. And you just might hear a voice you recognize starting one of our upcoming episodes. Email your audio clip to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com. The voice memo app on your phone will work just fine. Cheers!
And we are back. So the soundtrack for Armageddon did really well in the charts. It featured a lot of rock hits, including 4 songs sung by Aerosmith and also one sung by other artists like Journey and Bon Jovi. But we all remember one song in particular that was just a massive success. So let's talk about that for just a minute.
I don't want to miss a thing, Candy. Keep going.
So according to an article on the Ultimate Classic Rock website, Steven Tyler received a phone call one day from Jerry Bruckheimer saying that he was making a film called Armageddon. And guess what, Steven? Your daughter Liv is going to be in it.
I was wondering, is this pre-casting Liv or post-casting Liv?
Nope.
How did that affect it?
Liv was already in it.
Okay.
And he's like, we'd like to use some of your music. So 3 of their songs that were in the film were Sweet Emotion, their cover of the Beatles song Come Together, and this other song I was not familiar with called What Kind of Love Are You On? But I Don't Want to Miss a Thing was actually written not by Aerosmith, but by an award-winning singer-songwriter named Diane Warren, and it was specifically created for the movie.
Interesting.
Oh, it gets more interesting because several sources mention that Diane was inspired by the romance between James Brolin and Barbra Streisand. And I was like, how in the world? I need to know more. So I found an excerpt from a Deadline article that explains the details. Quote, in her memoir, My Name is Barbara, Streisand recalled being in bed with Brolin. He told her, I don't want to fall asleep. Asked why, he replied, 'cause I'll miss you.
Oh,
Streisand told the story in a 1997 2020 interview with Barbara Walters. Songwriter Diane Warren was watching, and she jotted down the statement, later using it in the lyrics for I Don't Want to Miss a Thing.
well.
Isn't that sweet? So anyway, Diane thought a female vocalist would likely sing it. She had Celine Dion in her mind
That
to
would have
do
been
it.
interesting.
I know. Can you imagine? She told Billboard at one point, I never, ever thought Aerosmith would do my song. They just don't do that. But then she went on to say what an amazing job they did. She just loved it, of course. And she also said, quote, I wasn't in the studio when they were recording, so it went from me teaching Steven Tyler the song at the piano to someone sending me the CD and hearing the finished record.
Wow.
I was blown out of my chair. It was so
I bet
great.
she was.
Can you imagine?
It was really good song.
Yeah. Well, everybody else thought so too, because the song peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars. This song was not only huge for the movie and the success of the soundtrack, it was also the only #1 single that Aerosmith ever had.
And it was more of a ballad.
Yeah. And well, they do some.
It's a power ballad.
Yes.
It's a power ballad.
Yeah. So isn't that cool?
That is cool.
All right, let's get into the juicy topic, the mixed reviews. Let's spill the tea. Here we go.
Spill it.
So let's start with some of the positives.
All right.
Obviously, everybody loved this film. It brought in $553.7 million in worldwide ticket sales. It finished 1998 as the highest grossing movie of the year. It was hugely popular. The soundtrack, we've already said, high on the charts. Hit song. This movie was nominated for lots of awards. 4 of them were Oscars. It was nominated for Best Sound, Sound Effects Editing, Visual Effects, and Original Song. Tons of nominations and other awards that it won. And then we had some big negativity, even back as all these people are going to see the movie, as it's raking in the dough, it's also receiving criticism. Probably the #1 thing it is critiqued for would be the scientific inaccuracies.
Oh, yeah.
And people saying that it's not believable.
I mean, really, guys, really, you're going to go with a blockbuster movie and go, that part wasn't scientifically accurate. That's not what we're here for. It's not a documentary.
Well, and that's pretty much what the producers and the director said. Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in an interview with 60 Minutes to promote Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams, who you'll remember worked on writing it, he recalls when he worked on the film, Jerry Bruckheimer encouraged him not to worry about scientific accuracy and just focus on telling an exciting story.
It's true in their world. It's not true in our world, but it's true in their world, and that's what matters.
Yes. There's a rumor out there. It was in the movie trivia, and I know you and I both saw it. We talked about this, but supposedly NASA would show this film during training and ask the people watching to spot as many errors as they could, and supposedly it's something like 168 that have been found. I don't know if that number is correct, but I did see a different source that said that's that's kind of a myth. It's kind of an urban legend that NASA doesn't really show the movie, but everybody agrees. Lots of inaccuracies.
But how do they know? Have they been up on an asteroid and put oil? Have they tried to drill through an asteroid? No. Maybe it's totally accurate, guys.
So it's interesting that we had all of these awards. You know, the movie is being
Lauded.
praised, yes. And the same year, at the same time, it was also nominated for a number of Razzies.
Of course it was.
It was nominated for Worst Screen Couple.
What? Really?
Worst Supporting Actress, Liv Tyler. Worst Director, Michael Bay. Worst Screenplay, Jonathan Hensley. Worst Original Song, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Worst Picture. And Worst Actor, Bruce Willis. And he won.
No.
Bruce won.
Did he go get it? Some of them go and get it.
I do not believe he showed up to claim it. No. So that's pretty
terrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, here you have these stars who, I mean, they're getting so much attention.
Yeah.
It said in different sources, like for Ben Affleck, this really
launched
increased
his career.
Right. It increased his star power. All of a sudden, he's leading man material that's got the beautiful smile and everything going with it. And at the same time, he's being nominated for a Razzie.
Yeah. As far as the couple goes, I thought they were a pretty good screen couple. So much so that I actually Googled when the show was over. I was like, did these two date in real life? Because I feel like some of that was like
there was chemistry,
and they did. They briefly did.
Did they?
They did. According to the thing I found that they had.
Interesting. Well, Gene Siskel gave it a thumbs up, but his partner at the time, movie critic Roger Ebert, hated it. A Yardbarker article said this. In reviewing it, Roger Ebert wrote, "The movie is an assault on the eyes, the ears, the brain, common sense, and the human desire to be entertained."
Oh my goodness.
He named it the worst movie of 1998 and would later include it on his list of the worst movies ever made. So think about how
that is a thumb
severe
way
that
down.
is.
That's
yeah,
a thumb
that's
way down.
Wow. Well, and people today are also a little iffy about it. I looked up the IMDb rating. It's 6.7 out of 10. You will literally see one review that's like
10 out of 10.
Yes, why does everybody pan this? This is great. I don't know what you're thinking. And then you'll go to the next one that says ridiculous, over the top. How could anybody watch this? It is just absolutely one extreme to the other. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 43% critic score. But a 73% popcorn meter score, which is what comes from the viewers.
Audience.
Now, let's quickly go back to your point. We were talking about Michael Bay and the directing style, and Bruce Willis reportedly openly said he did not care for Michael Bay's directing style and did not ever work with him again. Now, I saw one source where, again, I did not corroborate this. I did not find multiple sources, but it said in one source that Bruce had made a comment about he did not appreciate like the approach of screaming or yelling.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with that.
And then a different source said that because there was so much action, that I guess this would be Michael Bay, there was a lot of cutting, and that he felt like some of the relationships and some of the storyline and what held things together actually did hit the cutting room floor. Yep. And that instead of actually getting to develop some things, it was jumping from like action to action, which makes me wonder if when you said you got a little confused through the oil drilling parts.
I did, yeah.
Could it be that maybe some of the explanatory parts got taken out in order to really focus on the action?
Yeah.
And I mean, and it was a 2.5 hour movie already. So let's talk about Ben Affleck. Have you heard about what happened with his DVD commentary?
No, what?
I didn't know anything about this, but it tickled me. Okay, back when the movie first came out, some of the key players in the film were asked to give commentary. It was featured only on the Criterion Collections edition of Armageddon, which was a special DVD edition of the film. So it wasn't out there, you know, widely distributed. It was kind of this small, limited number of DVDs that had it. Several people offered insights. You had Michael Bay, Jerry Bruckheimer, Bruce Willis, and of course, you had a very young Ben Affleck. It sounds as though people just didn't even really notice. People either weren't listening to it, or the people who did hear about it didn't pay much attention to it. So this goes, you know, unnoticed for years. And then according to an article in The Atlantic, around 2016, suddenly it comes to people's attention and goes viral.
Oh no.
So what they say in this article is that most of the comments are exactly what you would expect from these other key players. They're talking about the high points of the film. They're complimenting each other on all their great work, like, yay, rah, rah. And then Ben Affleck comes in and he makes some comments that are way more entertaining, and this article describes them as snarky.
Uh-oh.
Just to give you a couple of examples, Ashley, I'm going to ask you to read this.
Oh,
Here's something that Ben said on the commentary track.
Have you ever noticed that everybody in all these movies has to be the best? Bruce Willis is the best deep core driller. I didn't know they rated deep core drillers. Like, if you went around and asked somebody, who's the best deep core driller? You know what I mean? Like, I'm the best espresso maker in Manhattan. How do you know? Who's keeping track of these things? You know what that reminds me of?
What?
I said the same thing in Twisters. Remember, I was like, how do we know that this girl's the best at tracking all the storms? Like, you're the best, Kate. You're the only one that can save us.
I remember that.
Apparently, Ben and I would have had a great time talking about this movie.
Yes. I think it sounds so funny. He says he's kind of proud of this DVD commentary now. He said back when he did it, he didn't know what you were supposed to do. He's like 25 years old, and he's like, I thought,
you're just talking about the movie.
You tell the truth. He goes, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to tell all the truth. So in a GQ interview that came out just this past March, here's another little excerpt talking about this. He said, I never expected, this is going to be genius. I thought I'm going to go do a big Hollywood action movie, and I love it. And yes, during the movie, I was kind of surprised to find that sometimes they weren't all that interested in making sense. But there's a sense of being small and of this thing being big. And so I felt like a little ant on an elephant when I would shoot my mouth off about the conversation I had with Michael Bay about why is it easier to train oil drillers to be astronauts than to train astronauts to drill a hole in the ground?
Right. Yeah, and I think he's also coming at it. I mean, we just talked about him and Matt won an Oscar for screenwriting. So he's looking at it from a writing standpoint and going, wait a minute, what? This doesn't make sense. And he's just thinking differently.
He is. And to be fair, they addressed that in the movie. In fact, somebody came back and asked, I think it was Michael Bay about it, but it could have been Jerry Bruckheimer. One of them said, it's in the movie. We straight up have that come up where Harry says, why don't you just train the astronauts? And they talk about, the skill involved in doing what they need to do.
Right.
It makes more sense to do it this way. So that was their response to that point. Now, one other thing people will bring up is that Michael Bay himself actually in an interview seemed to be criticizing Armageddon. He said back in 2013, I think he was talking to the Miami Herald, he said he thinks it was his worst film. Quote, I will apologize for Armageddon because we had to do the whole movie in 16 weeks. It was a massive undertaking that was not fair to the movie. I would redo the entire third act if I could. Now, he came back later and said, no, wait. I'm not apologizing saying this is a terrible movie. I'm just saying I wish I'd had more time to do what I wanted to do with that third act.
The third act has some of the best parts in it. Like, that's what you and I talked about enjoying is the goodbye and I wonder where he's starting the third act. Like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, not sure. But I think that was him kind of leaning into the criticism and then coming back and being like, no. I am not trying to say this was not trying to criticize this movie. I'm just explaining that I wish I could have done a little bit more with this, you know? Now, we've talked about some of the criticism, but I think it's only fair. We started with our fellas who do love this movie,
they do,
and I want this to be balanced. So I thought we would bring this to a close before our armchair by hearing why Kirk and Brian like this movie so much.
Aw.
So first, I'm going to play what Kirk said.
Armageddon. Man, did I love that movie. So much so that I saw it, I believe, 3 times at the theater and later bought the DVD and watched it several more times over the years. There was so much to love about it. I mean, you had major star power with Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Steve Buscemi, Billy Bob Thornton, several other actors that I recognized, Liv Tyler. You had one major action scene after another. A group of unlikely heroes that saved the world via a nuclear explosion in outer space. How cool is that? Then, of course, there were several emotional parts that tug at the heartstrings when we lost some characters we really cared about. I still remember my favorite line when the pilot of one of the space shuttles came up to Liv Tyler at the end and said, I want to shake the hand of the daughter of the bravest man I ever met, referring to Bruce Willis. That really got me. The scene of celebrations taking place throughout the world in all the different cultures after the meteor was destroyed was super cool. And then the wedding at the end was a very satisfying and happy ending. Oh, and don't forget the soundtrack. I mean, all those Aerosmith songs, those were amazing, and just put it over the top. Matter of fact, talking about this movie so much makes me think I'm probably going to have to watch it again soon.
Just to go on record, he did not do the rewatch with me because he was too busy. I was like, Kirk, you could have watched it with me. But no, he said some lovely things about it.
And that line, that's something that Brian, when it happened, because Brian did watch it with me, and he's like, I really like that line. He's like, I love that he says it, but he also liked Liv Tyler's acting there because he said, you can tell by her face, she doesn't like him, but she's accepting what he's saying. Like, he liked that. He thought that there was depth there where she was, I don't like you. You're the reason my dad's dead, and now, but I'll still shake your hand or whatever.
Well, speaking of Brian, let's hear what he had to say.
I had to think about what I like best about it. It goes back to two other references. One is the original Bruce Willis movies, Die Hard, where it was just an everyday guy saving everybody. In the movie Chernobyl, the government comes to everyday Joes who happen to be miners, and when they tell them, your lives are going to be in danger, but you're going to save millions of people downstream, and we need you all to do this, and when they were honest with them, they just said, okay, well, we have to do what we have to do. And what I like about this movie specifically is with all of the governments and everybody involved, they had to come to everyday Joes who knew their lives would be in danger, and they said, but we have to save everybody else. It's not some big, bodybuilding Arnold Schwarzenegger character. It's not a hero. These are everyday guys that are asked to save the world, and they know that, they even say in the movie that they don't really expect to come back, but they go up there because that's what heroes do. And it's a case of where everyday Joes are heroes, and we don't get the credit every day for what we do on a daily basis, because it always goes to the superheroes with super magical powers in the Marvel universe or something, when the world really revolves around everyday guys who do things that save people's lives, and they are heroes. So that's what I like best about it.
So he really connected to that idea of the everyday hero.
He really did. And listening to both of them, it does make me go, okay, I see it. I see why you all love this so much, especially the men in our lives. I see why they care about it.
And I appreciate that they both talk about the fact that this is a huge, massive, explosion-filled action movie, but they both connected to it emotionally.
They did.
Which is a skill. It's a skill to be able to create a film that is so focused on, cataclysmic, just one disaster thing happening after another, and yet they were able to bring all of us, I think we've said all of us were brought to tears at different points.
Absolutely.
So that's talent.
It is.
It is. Well, I'm going to actually end going back to Ben Affleck, because even Ben, who so publicly made these comments about the film, recently in an interview, this was Entertainment Weekly, he was talking about his films, and he was sharing that his kids basically ripped them all apart.
Aww.
Yes, you know how kids are, you
Yeah.
know, he was making light of it, the fact that, the kids don't want to see him, or when they do watch him, they'll make fun of him. And he said, quote, "It's funny because that's the one movie of mine that my kids have watched and they'll kind of all admit to liking.
Aww.
Even though they relentlessly mock it, and me, what are you doing, driving a tank on the moon?" But they had fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could make fun of me, but they kind of got it.
Yeah.
The spirit of it.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's a really lovely way to end.
It is.
Armchair Psychologist.
That brings us to the armchair.
I'm kind of in an armchair.
Yes. So here we've had, I hope we've done justice. We've covered
Yeah.
both sides. We've shared some of the criticisms. We've shared some of the positives and the praise for the film. So what do we think about this love-hate nature of this movie?
Gosh, I don't think you're going to change anybody's minds. I think whoever loves it, loves it. Whoever doesn't love it is never going to like it. But I feel like I'm just still going back to, it's your mindset. Did you go into this thinking it's a documentary about what would really happen if an asteroid came and how would we handle it? And this is the way we would actually do, and this is all true and scientific? Or did you go, hey, it's Bruce Willis. Let's get some popcorn. Let's just have a really good time.
Right. Because, other movies like Speed,
Yeah.
you can't jump jump a chasm that's as wide as they did in a bus. I mean, there are times when you just have to suspend your disbelief in order to sit back and enjoy a film.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I will say, I did not get bored during this movie. It was 2.5 hours long, and I stayed with it. Like, I was 100% into and watching this film to the very end.
Yeah, there was a couple of notes that I made. I actually thought, like I said, I thought that Ben and Liv's love story was sweet. The animal cracker scene I thought was very sweet. I thought the leaving on the jet plane when they were singing, I thought that was very sweet. And the sequence where they were rescuing AJ when the Russian was rescuing him, that was intense. If I didn't already know that he survived, I would have been really worried and upset because it was done very, very well. And I knew he was okay, and I was still like stressed about it.
Right. So really quickly, I'm going to jump in there just because I feel like we need to say this, which is obvious, right? Almost every TV show, every film made back in the 1990s, there are things that just do not age well. This movie has
some
those
dialogue
as well. You know, different things that are just, not so great. But you mentioned the leaving on a jet plane.
Yeah.
I think I can also see that they were influenced by these other movies that have been successful right beforehand. For example, Top Gun.
Oh,
had
yeah,
the
'cause he sang to her.
Yep,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
had
yeah.
the singing scene. We've already heard that they added more of the romance with AJ and Grace because of Titanic's success. Independence Day, the patriotism. I could see, knowing some of the other films that had come out around that time, how these people who are involved in this production might have been inspired, or
They put it all in a blender and said, let's see what comes out.
Right. And we haven't mentioned this, but Deep Impact was another
I
film that
really
was
liked
coming
that
out
one.
right around the same time. And I think that there was a comparison, of course. There was
Have
a
you
lot
seen
of
that one?
comparison. I think when it first came out.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long, long time, and we have it on VHS, and I didn't do a rewatch, so I'm going by memory. But I remember some of those scenes really standing out to me and being also powerful. And there was also a habit back then of calling like the A movie, B movie. There would be the same things that came out, like you had Dante's Peak about a volcano, and then something, I think a film called Volcano. So it would be similar movies, and like Deep Impact was the B side of the record. But I remember really liking that one.
Yeah, I think it was a thing. I think a studio would hear that something
Somebody
was in
else
the
is doing
works,
it.
and they would be like, "Hey, let's take that idea and come up with our own thing." So, and then there was competition. At the time, Armageddon won. Like their box office was way higher, but people over the years have compared and said, in some ways, Deep Impact was the stronger film
you've
and was
also
more
got
scientifically accurate.
White House Down and the other one, Olympus Has Fallen. So it's something like that. They had those two. There was something along those lines.
Yeah.
Similar things.
Well, I think we've covered this pretty well.
I think we have.
I think we've settled on the fact that
It's just fun.
it's a fun popcorn action adventure, exactly
Silly.
what it promised it was going to
Yes.
be. It fulfilled its promise. And for those of you who love it, we see why.
We do. I do. And if you don't love it, just, adjust your expectations, guys. That's all I got to say in defense of the film.
Right.
It's just fun.
Can we cheer? I know we do this. I know, but Bruce Willis.
Absolutely,
Can we
Bruce
cheers
Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Absolutely, we can.
I mean, he was in that heart and soul.
he put everything into it. His little smirky self was all in on Armageddon.
and he made us cry.
He did, and he saved the world.
He did. And his daughter's relationship.
That's right. She called him daddy, and Bride's like, she's called him daddy.
So, cheers to you, Bruce.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.